And that news that New South Wales has signed a UN declaration on zero emissions vehicles by 2040. Today's theme at those climate talks is all about transportation. I was joined a short time ago from Glasgow by Brian O'Callaghan. He's the lead researcher of the Oxford University Economic Recovery Project.
Look, I've personally always been skeptical of these COPs. And while I think there is really big potential here in Glasgow, and there's a lot of energy around town, both within the conference centre and all over the city, unfortunately, at least from my perspective, most of the agenda from advanced economies has been a lot more posturing, repetition, and empty statements, not very much in terms of actual action. And so a lot on the activist side are left wanting. But I think this COP is a little bit different to past years because there's a much bigger business presence. I think that we've seen businesses in the EU and Europe and the US in particular saying the right things. But of course, there's a big gap between what they're saying and I suppose what they could be doing. One thing that hasn't been different, though, and we spoke about this a little bit last time, Kieran, is the treatment of developing countries within the conference center. 2 weeks ago, while I was here on the show, I explained that one of the major problems with the Paris Agreement is that developing countries haven't really been getting the support that they were promised or they need to make a green transition. And that, in some ways, it's really disheartening. The world promised these countries $100 billion per year if they signed up to this agreement so that they could develop their economies, because development is so important for them, but do it in a sustainable way. While we promised $100 billion per year, so far we're only at about $38 billion, if you believe Oxfam. So you can imagine that's a little bit of a slap in the face to those countries. And unfortunately, we haven't seen very much progress on that front yet either.
Brian, I know the Australian government has doubled its commitment on that finance front. How's its broader response been received there? Interesting you should say that business has stepped up its contribution. That's been a big focus of our government, technology, but also the private sector and its role in it all. What have you made of the reaction to the Australian approach?
Yeah, it's a good question, Kieran. Look, Australia really has made big progress over the last year. And I keep saying here, we do need to give a little bit of credit. The government has done what many thought was quite impossible in bringing together, the church. Unfortunately, in the COP pavilions, while Australia has a really strong and positive presence, for the first time they actually had their own pavilion, giving away quality Aussie coffee and displaying some of the technology solutions that are coming out of the country. Unfortunately, we still have a little bit of an international marketing problem, I think. The world still sees us as a little bit of the problem child on climate. At the end of the day, though, most countries are failing. And I think a lot of our bad rap has come just because we have been the slowest of the lot. If we had made the same announcements of recent times 2 years ago, we would have been basically ahead of everyone else. So when it comes to the climate conversation, when this is all about reducing emissions, the race against time, 2 years, it makes all the difference. And that's why people perhaps don't have the greatest view of Australia here.